Hello, this is Zahir Alam. Welcome you all on Frankly Speaking. Our guest today is British High Commissioner in Bangladesh, Stephen Evans, CMG OBE. He arrived in Bangladesh on 23rd of June and he is already 2 months in Bangladesh. Mr. Evans, a career diplomat for 28 years, a highly experienced and accomplished diplomat with an in-depth experience in South Asia especially. He has previously served as British ambassador to Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, and was the head of South Asia Department of UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office. He also served in British mission in different countries, different cities like in Islamabad, Ankara, Bangkok and Hanoi. We welcome High Commissioner Stephen Evans on Frankly Speaking.
Good evening to you. Hello.
Thank you very much. Hello. Let's begin with your impression about the relations, warm, very friendly relations, as we know, between the United Kingdom and Bangladesh. And you have termed already that the relations between the two countries is something special one. And but first of all, I would like to know what are the reasons why you term the relations between the two countries as special one?
I think a key reason is that the British people and the people of Bangladesh have common interests, shared values. We have a common commitment to building democracy, to economic and social development, to dealing with threats to our environment, threats to our security, to working together. These are shared values, shared aims. But what I think gives these shared aims and shared values particular point and purpose is the historical ties between our two countries and the people-to-people links. The fact that there are over 500,000 people of Bangladeshi origin who've chosen to make their homes in the United Kingdom, whilst at the same time maintaining their contacts with Bangladesh. This adds direction and vibrancy and immediacy to the relationship. So what I think you have is a genuine friendship between Britain and Bangladesh, a genuine friendship in an increasingly complex and globalized world.
So this is an accepted fact that the future of the two countries also interlinked in terms of democracy, in terms of development. What do you would say?
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, we are committed to working closely with the government and people of Bangladesh in pursuit of the shared goals that I've already discussed, but also to work together on the world stage, because there are issues out there that have to be confronted collectively by several countries.
What are the issues?
I mean, a typical example is the problem of terrorism and other threats to security. But I would also highlight the problem of threats to the environment stemming from climate change. This is a global problem, but it's a problem that I think will affect Bangladesh immediately and to a very great extent.
So in terms of fighting climate change, you know that the Bangladesh is very vulnerable to this problem, and last year we had a very bad experience with the cyclone Sidr that hit coastal area, and huge devastations were there. So in terms of extending support from the developed countries like UK, you have consistently been promising to stand by, to support Bangladesh in fighting this the problem, especially the climate change. So, what are the measures? What are the actions you have undertaken so far for the development or to support Bangladesh in this sector?
Well, the commitment is already there, and I think that we will significantly increase the amount of resources we put into climate change aspects of our development assistance program for Bangladesh. One of the things I would highlight is that you don't just deal with climate change in isolation. You have to mainstream activities that deal with climate change into really every aspect of economic and social development, because, as you rightly point out, it's an issue that is going to be very relevant here, because the threat to Bangladesh from climate change is actual and immediate.
Yeah. So, in other way, apart from climate change, what are the other biggest challenges for this country?
And it's not just a challenge for Bangladesh. I think it's a challenge for every country on the planet, is to bring out that country's true potential. The true potential of the nation, the true potential of the people who live in that nation. And one of the mechanisms in Bangladesh for bringing out that full potential is the moves to achieve by 2015 the Millennium Development Goals.
Yeah.
And our own development assistance program for Bangladesh is linked very closely to making progress towards achieving those vital Millennium Development Goals.
You know that world leaders is going to meet in September, I think, at the United Nations to assess or evaluate the advancement that they have so far achieved in meeting the development goals. So I know you are in Bangladesh only for 2 months. So have you evaluated the success or the development in terms of meeting the goals set in the Millennium Development Goal?
Yep. Well, I'm not sure that it's really for me to make that evaluation. I mean, I think that it's very much a matter for the Bangladesh government to evaluate the country's progress in achieving the development goals and to carry out that evaluation in consultation with a wide range of stakeholders, both within the country and externally. But what I can say is that the DFID, that's the British Department of International Development program for Bangladesh, is closely linked to achieving the Millennium Development Goals, and DFID is looking at the moment at how to develop a new country assistance program for this country. That will be a 5-year program running from 2009 to 2013-2014. That's a program that would be very much aligned behind the priorities of the government of Bangladesh in development terms, and it will be prepared in consultation with government, civil society and other stakeholders in this country, but designed to make sure that our development assistance is helping you achieve your objectives within the context of reaching the Millennium Development Goals.
But how much money will be spent under that program from 2009 to 2013? I
can't give you a precise figure, but what I can say is that we are already spending well over $250 million a year on development assistance for Bangladesh, and I could see that figure rising to something in the region of $300 million a year. But I can't give you a precise figure for the full 5-year program to be covered by the country assistance program.
Well, Your Excellency, you said to have a greater success, one need to bring out their true potential. You know, the democracy and the good governance is 2 other major areas of concern from the international community also. So what do you think that this country is heading towards an election end of this year? So what do you think that the country is really ready for a very good election end of this year?
Well, firstly, I totally agree with you on the point that you've made, and that is that good governance is crucial to economic and social development. Without good governance, no country can achieve its full potential. The issue of whether Bangladesh is ready for elections at the end of this year, I think is very much a matter for the caretaker government and indeed the body politic of this country to make a judgment about. But, I mean, everything that has been said to me by the caretaker government, by the political parties and by other stakeholders indicates that everyone is looking towards elections, and I think that the date that has been mentioned is the 3rd week of December in 2008, and that is a goal to which my sense is that all in Bangladesh are moving.
But I want to know the UK's position that in Bangladesh, major political parties demanding lift of emergency, and some of the parties categorically said they will not take part or participate in the next elections under emergency. So if it is held under emergency, what will be the UK's position?
Well, I think that's a hypothetical question because there is nothing to indicate, as I understand it at the moment, that the elections will take place.
Some advisors categorically said the election will be held under emergency.
Well, under the existing state of emergency, I asked the question because I think the chief advisor is on record as talking about the gradual lifting of the provisions of the state of emergency, which would indicate
But that is not a full lifting of emergency.
Well, again, I don't know. Gradual lifting of the state of emergency could mean lifting of some provisions only, but it could also mean a complete lifting. But a sequential lifting of the provisions of the state of emergency. But I think we have to see how this process evolves. I think we have to listen very carefully to what the caretaker government says, to what the political parties say, to what other stakeholders say, so that we can see the direction in which the process is moving, and that will help all concerned to take a view as to whether the elections are indeed free and fair, as we very much hope they will be, and deep down I think I'm very confident they will be.
Someone said from the European Union that under emergency, what European Union does, that they usually do not participate in the election monitoring process.
I think, again, it will depend on the nature of the state of the emergency. It may well be that come December the state of emergency will have been completely lifted. It may well be that a number of key provisions will have been relaxed. But what is essential is that there is the political space for free and fair elections, which clearly means that there must be public campaigning, that there must be freedom of expression, that candidates must be able to explain what it is that they stand for, that those who actually vote in the election must be able to go to the polls freely, without, of course, being at risk from violence, because one also has to remember that one of the major obstacles to a free and fair election can be the threat of violence or actual violence. And so peace and tranquility during the campaign period and on election day are absolutely crucial.
So did you observe the outcome or the process of local government election?
We, the British High Commission, sent 7 small observer teams to areas in which the election was being held. So did our partners in European Union missions, and so did a number of other diplomatic missions, including the Japanese, the Australians and the Americans. This modest election observation effort was launched and carried out at the express invitation of the Elections Commissioner, and we all shared our findings with the Elections Commissioner. And I think that those findings were generally pretty positive, because it was an election that took place peacefully, and my sense is that it augurs well for elections later in the year, but that's just a private view.
So, some political party boycotted that election. So what will happen if they boycott in the next election?
Well, as you say, I mean, some political parties technically boycotted the elections, although I think a number of people who were members of or were supporters of those parties did actually participate. I mean, our hope, I say our hope, I think the collective hope is that the political parties, all the political parties, will feel able to participate in elections later this year, participate in the campaign, put up candidates, and see those candidates stand for election on polling day. Because the greater the level of participation in the elections, the more effective those elections will be at expressing the political will of the electorate, of the people of this country, which is what democracy is all about.
Excellency, we all know that this is a transitional period and in Bangladesh. So what does it need to achieve a sustainable democracy, a durable democracy in Bangladesh?
I think anywhere in the world there are certain common factors that are required if democracy is to be sustainable, if democracy is to be enduring. You need to have soundly based democratic institutions. You need to have a readiness on the part of political parties to participate in the democratic process. You need to have a readiness, and this is very important, a readiness of ordinary people to participate in the democratic process, because it's vital that very significant proportions of the electorate do turn out on polling day to vote. And interesting to see that in the recent local elections here, no less than 80% of the electorate voted, which is marvellous. Yeah. It's also, I think, necessary that everybody accepts the rules of the game, that all those who participate in the electoral process push their ideas firmly, get their ideas across, but at the same time allow others political space to put across their ideas. And that when there is an election, and if that election is free and fair, everybody, political parties and electorate accepts the outcome. And then, with the outcome accepted, you can then have a democratically elected government which can go about its business. It should rightly be scrutinised by Parliament. It should rightly be scrutinised and criticised by the opposition. But the scrutiny and the opposition should all take place within the parliamentary framework, with no recourse to extra parliamentary activities and extra parliamentary mechanisms for expressing opposition.
Did you see much advancement, development in the party reforms in Bangladesh?
Let's wait and see. I mean, clearly the last 19 months has been a period of reflection for all concerned, and the parties and the electorate will now be looking to an election, be considering how they're going to perform during the campaign, how they're going to vote on election day, and what will happen next. Let's not make any prejudgments, and let's hope that everything moves in the right direction towards a proper, participative form of democracy.
Well, there is expectations from all parts of the societies. But what does the UK expect from the future government of Bangladesh, if we take it ideally that the election will be held in a free and fair atmosphere, and it will be participatory, acceptable by the world community, including the people of Bangladesh? What is your expectations from the, UK expectation from the next government?
Well, what the UK will be hoping for is that we will be able to build a good, cooperative, collaborative relationship with the newly elected government, a relationship that will take the form of a genuine partnership, as has our relationship with previous governments, that will enable us to work with the government on a common agenda, which is really the issues that we discussed at the beginning of this conversation: economic and social development, increasing the two-way flow of trade and investment between Britain and Bangladesh, working on issues such as the proper management of migration, improving education, improving healthcare, and improving the links between the two countries. And this we can do if the British government is able to work on a basis of a partnership with the newly elected government. And that is definitely something that we want to do, definitely something to which we are committed.
Well, Your Excellency, let's move on to some other points regarding investment. We know that the UK is one of the largest investors with, in statistics, that $4 billion worth of investment is in Bangladesh, with $2 billion in the pipeline. It has been discussed recently. So, do you think that the more UK company will be interested to come forward to invest in Bangladesh? Is there any development on the investment scenario?
I think in the medium to long term you will find an increasing number of British companies seeking to invest in Bangladesh. And there are a number of reasons for that. One is that you're achieving very impressive growth rates of 6% a year. And as your economy continues to grow, so you will create opportunities for inward investors. And of course, that inward investment will further boost economic growth. So it's a virtuous circle. And there are some very clear areas where I think there is scope for investment. Energy. Looking at exploration for natural gas, possibly for oil, the development of coal resources, investment in the power sector, investment in infrastructure, and also manufacturing. I mean, it's worth remembering that, Bangladesh is a very impressive performer when it comes to exporting garments to Europe, including the United Kingdom, to the United States and elsewhere. I think that last year we purchased something like $1.5 billion worth of Bangladeshi garments. And of course that opens up scope for foreign, including British investments in the garment sector, to help build the factories and develop the productive potential to produce garments for the international market. These are very fruitful areas for investment.
Well, when the question of investment comes, you know that the sense of perception is not been very good abroad about Bangladesh. Whenever the the question or word Bangladesh comes, in the Western world particularly, it conjures up with some negative images like the land of natural disasters, poverty-ridden, corruption, and the problem and the question of governance issue, instability. So all that comes in the discussions table. So do you think the Bangladesh can really change its image or the perception, can alleviate perception in the Western world especially?
I think the answer is that Bangladesh certainly can change perceptions, and I think it is already doing so. I mean, I think that the way people regard Bangladesh now is very different to the way they would have regarded Bangladesh in the 1970s or even the 80s and 1990s. And I think one of the indicators of that is the fact that there is an inward flow of foreign investment, and that inward flow of foreign investment will, I think, increase. And I think that you also have 500,000 very good ambassadors for Bangladesh in the United Kingdom, because there are 500,000 people of Bangladeshi origin who've taken up residence in the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
They're very valued members of British society. They make a great contribution to the economic and cultural and even political life of the British nation. And I think that they do a great deal to encourage people in the United Kingdom to take a fresh look at Bangladesh and consider what the prospects are here for economic growth, consider whether there are ways in which British companies can invest here. And I think it's a real positive dynamic in the relationship between our two countries and our two peoples.
So they can also play as an ambassador in the outside world to get a fresh look about Bangladesh.
Oh, very much so.
Well, but you mentioned that more than 500,000 Bangladeshis living in UK. They're somehow, most of them linked with restaurant business in the UK, and earned about £4.5 billion annually, and contributing immensely in the UK's economy. So this is possibly because the restaurants made Bangladesh cuisine very popular. But my question is that the 11,000 or 12,000 restaurants in UK, they badly need some extra workers, like 10,000 workers, especially skilled chefs. So do you think that our two governments can do something on that point?
Well, if you're talking about additional skilled workers, I think there's every opportunity for trained chefs and trained specialists to travel from Bangladesh to the United Kingdom to work either temporarily or long-term in the catering industry. There, I think there are some real possibilities. If you're looking at unskilled workers in the catering profession, then I think first and foremost the Bangladeshi catering industry in the UK should look at the British workforce. I mean, there are a lot of unemployed young people in the United Kingdom, including, of course, a lot of unemployed young people of Bangladeshi origin. And I think that in proportionate terms, that unemployment is relatively high among young Bangladeshis resident in the UK. And these are obvious people to recruit into the catering industry, and obvious people to train within that industry so they can build up their own skills and add to the industry and to help the industry expand and grow.
I have a question regarding education, higher study in England. You know, there are lots of students in Bangladesh. They have been nurturing the ambition to pursue their educations in the United Kingdom. But you know, this is an age of globalizations, and the UK has established dispositions, provided good quality educations. But still, the British Council, you mentioned about British Council, they are also out there to help out the students who are interested to pursue their higher studies. But you know that the students who are really interested to go United Kingdom, they usually or they frequently faces some sort of unpleasant experience with some agencies, some education consultation agencies. And they also face some difficulty about receiving visas from the UK High Commission. So what do you think, how they can get over such difficulties, or how they can alleviate this sort of concern from the malpractices of agencies?
Right. Well, the first thing is that I think that any young Bangladeshi who is considering studying in the UK needs to get objective, impartial advice from the right sort of organisation about the opportunities that exist to study in the UK. And the British Council is actually a very good place to start. And they can provide advice on the sort of courses on offer and advice to how to approach putting in an application. When it comes to this issue of visas, I'm pretty comfortable about the way in which our visa operation is going at the moment. We have streamlined it and improved it in recent years. And the days when people had to queue outside the High Commission for interviews have long gone. And it's a much more streamlined and I think a much more transparent process. And I would normally expect that if someone has obtained a place at a genuine UK educational institution, be it a college or a university, and if they put in their application in good time, they can expect to get their visa. And certainly we're very keen to provide a good visa service and very keen to provide visas for those who want to study in the United Kingdom. There may be the odd occasion when things don't go quite right, and of course people do have the right to appeal if they feel that they have not been given the right answer by the visa system. But we are committed to providing a fair, fast and efficient visa service, and we will continue to try and provide that service and do our very best for those who do choose to go to the UK to study.
But that sounds very encouraging. Your Excellency, we are almost at the end of our program. So the last question is, where do you see the most possibilities or the true potential of Bangladesh?
I think the true potential lies in its people. I mean, the people of Bangladesh are very creative, very hardworking, very industrious, and I think that they really can help this country achieve its full potential, working together to build a new future for themselves, for their children, for their grandchildren, and for this wonderful country.
And we expect and we hope that we'll be continuously receiving your support to fill our target.
Very much so. I will do everything I can to strengthen the already good relationship, the already very close relationship between our two countries, and I enormously look forward to my tour here.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency,
Thank you very much
for joining us. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good night.
Dear viewers, High Commissioner Stephen Evans, a very respectable diplomat of higher seat, with his noble vision, has expressed his commitment again to build up a new and special partnership with Bangladesh. We hope relations between the United Kingdom and Bangladesh during Mr. Evans' time will reach into a new height, which is already, he mentioned, deep-rooted, both historically